Okay!
Hello everybody, welcome to JoyClicks. My name's Christian. The people who work at Telltale Games, before I get into this video, I just want to give a quick shout out. Those people are responsible for some of my favorite stories, my favorite moments, favorite characters, just favorite gaming experiences over the past few years. They've consistently been able to get physical emotion out of me, time and time again, unlike any other developer. They have a real talent for storytelling, and I think The Wolf Among Us is standing above everything else in their library. They really went above and beyond, I think, with this story. The Wolf Among Us is, in my opinion, one of the quintessential noir stories. Whenever I have to think of one, it stands with the best. It stands with the classic detective movies. It stands up there with those great stories, to me at least. This past weekend was my 5th or 6th time through the game. Already knowing where it was going to go, I was still entertained by it because I found new paths, I found new character interactions, new moments of dialogue, and this past weekend's playthrough has just really confirmed this as being one of my favorite gaming experiences, not only of the last gen, but probably in my top 15 of all time. So after the closure of Telltale Games last week, the prospect of The Wolf Among Us Season 2 has been fading away, and we have a lack of a definitive answer to the underlying mystery of the game that is teased at the end of The Wolf Among Us Season 1. The people who worked at Telltale redefined what it meant to have a choose-your-own-adventure story, so it's poetic almost in a way that the lasting legacy for The Wolf Among Us is one that is a mystery and up for interpretation among the fans, because the Telltale at its best, the most essential Telltale, is the choices you make that shape how you get to your destination. But today what we're going to be doing is looking back at the events of The Wolf Among Us to try and investigate the unsolved ending of The Wolf Among Us. So to jump right into it and start, we have to disregard something that is an easy route to an answer for what the ending of the game means, and that is fables. So fables, if you're not familiar, is what The Wolf Among Us is based upon. Fables is a graphic novel comic book series starring Bigby Wolf, Snow White, Red Rose, and some of the other fables we're familiar with that are in The Wolf Among Us. There are some notable differences that really disconnect The Wolf Among Us from the Fables narrative. You can definitely play Bigby as the lone wolf, you can play him as Snow's lapdog, pretty much. There is a lot of variation there, at least in how you interact with people. So that kind of takes away from going straight to Fables for answers, as well as the time period difference, because The Wolf Among Us takes place about 20 years before Fables does when it starts out. So because of this, we pretty much have to throw away any evidence or indications we could get from looking into the Fables stories. So we gotta look back at the game. The big climactic mystery of The Wolf Among Us comes down to the victims of the game and Bigby. Faith and Nerissa specifically, alongside Bigby, are the ones at the center of this controversy, and this was probably a direct choice, but his interactions with both Faith and Nerissa pretty much bookend the game. And to begin unraveling this mystery, we should really start at the end so we get a sense of what we're building up to. After Bigby and the town deals with the season's main antagonist, the Crooked Man, through decapitation, or however you decide to do it, I decided decapitation twice. It's very satisfying.
Oh my god!
But regardless of what you choose, Bigby is pretty much indebted to the last-minute evidence brought upon this trial by Nerissa. She has a first-hand account of everything that the Crooked Man did, which justifies Bigby's actions and his decision of judgment to Fabletown and to Snow, and even the player. In the closing moments, Bigby is confronted by Nerissa, who has a packed bag. She's free to go her own way for the first time in her life for at least a very long time, leaving behind the loss and suffering that she experienced over the course of The Wolf Among Us and the enslavement that she's basically been tied to for even longer than the game shows. In the final scenes, she confesses to Bigby that she embellished, quote-unquote, the evidence she presented at the trial, because, as she put it to Bigby, she knew the Crooked Man deserved punishment the worst imaginable, and she couldn't let him get off for what he did to both her and her friends. So pausing right there for a second, it's important to notice what the Crooked Man actually put into motion, starting at the beginning of the game. When the game kicks off, we are introduced to Bigby lighting a cigarette that we will see several times over the course of the season. He's answering the call to arms, and we're introduced to Bigby the Big Bad Wolf through a conversation with Mr. Toad. So the whole point of bringing this up is the aspect of glamours. It's the reason that a toad is talking to a rugged, normal-looking beat detective, which is Bigby, because of glamours. Now, not every fable is as lucky as someone like Bigby, who's a werewolf, Snow White, who's a human, her sister, who's a human, Ichabod Crane, who's a human. We do have trolls, we do have toads, we do have pigs, and they need glamours so they're able to fit in with the Mundies in the world. Mundies being normal people, think muggles from Harry Potter. And a glamour in this world is pretty much a spell that alters the physical appearance of fables. The whole glamour thing is a rule mandated by the Fabletown government. It's law for them to have it if they want to stay in the city, and it plays a huge part in the mystery of this game, specifically with the deaths of some of the victims and what we're talking about in this video. After we're introduced to this concept from Mr. Toad, Bigby heads upstairs to deal with the woodsman, who he also has a history past with. So Bigby walks into the room and sees this drunk woodsman abusing a prostitute, who will later learn her name is Faith. But once Bigby and the woodsman go through a sedan and the woodsman gets an axe to his head, Bigby's able to talk to Faith and get her account of the situation. Bigby doesn't really learn much, not even her name at the time of the crime, because Faith, like every worker of the Pudding and Pie strip club / brothel, is restricted from breaking their code of discretion that is in their motto, enforced by a deadly spell. So Faith has to pretty much speak in riddles and very vague terms. She can't do much other than thank the sheriff and lets him know that he's not as bad as people say he is.
I'll see you around, Wolf.
Skipping ahead a little bit, long story short, Faith's head ends up on Bigby's doorstep, and that sets in motion the entire season of The Wolf Among Us. The entire mystery, the who is the murderer, who's behind this entire scheme of evil lurking underneath the seedy underbelly of Fabletown, and that's basically where it kicks off. So that is pretty much Faith's character. So the logical step after finding her dead on his doorstep is looking into who she is, because like I said, he did not get a name. He wasn't able to figure almost anything out from Faith. So Bigby, Snow White, and Buffkin, the bookkeeper for the Fabletown business office, sort through records of all the fables, discovering that the woman Bigby saved is Faith, also known as Donkey Skin. Donkey Skin's story is actually pretty integral to this entire game, even though it might not seem it on the surface. Her story is one you'd expect from pretty much any other fable at that time period. It's very dark. She's this beautiful princess whose mother dies, and the king is looking for a bride for a very long time, and he thinks the only person who's as beautiful as his wife is his daughter. She's not about that, so she cloaks herself with a donkey skin. It's a disguise for her to pretty much get out of the kingdom, go away from her captive father, and start a new life. So once Bigby and Snow gather a few leads, including Faith's name, they're able to track down her place of work, the Pudding and Pie, whose proprietor Georgie, her pimp, is a character we're not going to go into because he doesn't have much of a role in this entire underlying mystery, but he's something alright. So once Bigby discovers the Pudding and Pie, that is when the second aspect of this whole situation comes into play, Nerissa. So Nerissa is introduced as a fellow working girl, and very much like Faith, she's only able to speak and help Bigby through riddles, vague hints, general directions of things, just any way she can figure out a workaround for the curse so she can help Bigby, because she makes it clear several times she desperately wants to help him.
Sheriff Wolf, would you like to make an appointment with me?
The open arms. This is where they met.
Enjoy your stay. I hope you find what you're looking for.
And as the series continues on and the Crooked Man steps out of the shadows, revealing himself as being the puppet master behind organized crime in Fabletown, Nerissa comes back to Bigby to point to the direction of the bigger players in the game in the best way she can, which is cryptically, again.
Beauty and Beast called the office just now. They said they wanted to talk to you about something. I wonder if they've heard about Crane.
Thank you for listening, Sheriff. You should go on to your next business. I don't think you'll be wasting your time.
Wait, you don't have to go.
Now, if you're wondering where this is going, we should jump back to the final encounter between Bigby and Nerissa at the game's close. So up until this point, Nerissa has led him on a trail of breadcrumbs to end up where they stand at the end on the sidewalk. Nerissa is shown to be smarter than she initially appeared when they first met, when she was exposed and vulnerable and scared. Not here. Here.
These lips are sealed. Sorry.
Yeah, so after reading through countless fan theories, having my own speculations on things, combing through evidence, and replaying the entire season with this in mind, the only sensible answer to the cliffhanger of The Wolf Among Us is that we actually never saw Faith, alive, that is, and that Nerissa was disguising herself as Faith from the very beginning. So looking at it from Nerissa's perspective, she saw the death of her best friends, her co-workers were dropping like flies at the hands of her boss, she was stuck here witnessing orders of the Crooked Man being carried out. She feared for her life, and due to the curse, she had no way to go about telling anybody about it. It's alluded to in Nerissa's testimony that Georgie was the one who had to take care of Faith. He's the one who killed her, but the time period of when he did kill her is never really specified. But Nerissa does know that Faith was silenced at the hands of Georgie by the orders of the Crooked Man. So the theory is that Nerissa could have glamored herself to appear as Faith, purposefully causing trouble with the woodsman, knowing Bigby would show up, breaking up the encounter, being introduced to Faith, being teased at the possibilities of answers for what was going on, making it even more surprising for him when he returned home to see her head on his doorstep within just a few hours time span. Nerissa does confess that she was the one who hopped the fence at the Woodlands apartment building and then placed Faith's head on his doorstep. So if she had access to Faith's head after it was decapitated, who's to say that she just didn't grab a lock of hair, go to Auntie Greenleaf, who's been doing illegal glamours throughout the entire game for people who can't afford it, and glamour herself as Faith before she planted the head to really get Bigby surprised and feel like it's a direct message to him. There is a fair amount of disbelief and gray area in that couple-hour time span, or the debate of when Faith actually died, but it's not that much. From the second we're introduced to her character, she's treated as more important than is initially led on. She points Bigby straight to the direction of Crane's dark side to be revealed for that whole arc of the season, and he even remarks that there's something familiar about Nerissa the first time they interact with each other. He can't place it, but maybe it's the way she carries herself, or even how she speaks. And speaking of how she speaks, I think the most damning piece of evidence that leans into the fact that Nerissa is pulling the strings for Bigby's investigation the whole time is just her words. But Nerissa pretty much even delivers a similar line to Bigby that Faith did earlier in the season.
You're not as bad as everyone says you are. You're not as bad as everyone says you are.
And if it wasn't obvious enough that something was going on here, Bigby, as he watches Nerissa walk away, runs through several different lines of dialogue in his head, or at least that's how it's presented, making him connect the dots between Faith and Nerissa, giving the player the final choice as to pursue her or let her walk away.
Back to you about
He
Faith.
said he wanted to run more tests. I hope you find what you're looking for.
I'll see you around, Wolf.
And that's where a lot of the physical in-game evidence stands for it. Evidence being used loosely there. Even looking at it from far away though, from a sort of meta-narrative standpoint, the inclusion of Donkey Skin's Fable story is pretty much writing on the wall about this trickery. Think about it, there's a beautiful woman who's fearful of her direct superior, so she uses a disguise to get herself out of the situation she finds herself in, leaving to start a new life. So playing through it with that lens really gave me an eye-opening experience to looking at it critically in this way, at least, because I know there are some other theories out there. We can touch on those quickly. There's a theory that it's actually the reverse roles, that Faith was alive the entire time and Nerissa was the one who was killed, and the head of Faith that shows up on Bigby's doorstep is actually Nerissa glamored to look like Faith. I know it's confusing, but when we meet Nerissa later in the game, it's actually Faith, and that is the continuation of the Donkey Skin story, where she is literally the same character under disguise, leaving off to start a new life. I don't know if she'd want to start a new life at the end though, if she's still disguised, and that raises the question also of if she was in disguise as Nerissa to protect herself from the Crooked Man, wouldn't she have just come clean at the end to Bigby and be like, hey, yeah, it's me, it's Faith. Sorry, I just needed a way to get out of that situation. Because she technically really didn't do anything wrong. She did about as much wrong as Nerissa did in the theory I just presented. But undoubtedly, this was a thread that was going to be touched upon in The Wolf Among Us Season 2 when it eventually came out in 2019. And there are some other loose threads out there, like a lot of the Crooked Man's posse. Jersey is still out there, the Tweedles are still mucking about. We saw that Crane had orders to flee to Paris, so that's probably something that would have come up again, because the world of Fables in the books is so much greater than just the woodlands that we touch on in The Wolf Among Us. Then there's also Bloody Mary, who may not even be dead since we saw her create so many different clones of herself. Who's to say that she actually didn't just disappear, leave, flee, and let Bigby think he killed her? It just seems unlikely that she would have gone out that fast after being introduced so suddenly as a major player. But that's pretty much where I stand with all of this Wolf Among Us theorizing. I think it's very clear at the end of the day that the closing choice of The Wolf Among Us is left to be up to interpretation. We don't get a clear answer. We are given the choice to pursue her or not, and I guess that really just depends on how you look at the situation. I pursued her because if it really was Nerissa behind the whole thing, I would want to know if it was actually her. If it was Faith, I think I just would have let her walk, because she's already been through so much, and Faith having to disguise herself and just walk away from the whole situation seems more peaceful than confronting Nerissa and being like, oh wait, hey, was this you? Did you organize me to find all of this stuff? Because that's pretty much what her character is there for throughout the entire season. But that is what makes the most sense to me out of all of this. Like I said, The Wolf Among Us is one of my favorite gaming experiences of all time, and I really just want to thank the people who worked on this game again. It's a fantastic story. So if you've stuck around this long and you've never played The Wolf Among Us, I highly recommend it, even though we just talked about the entire end of the game and pretty much all the spoilers that go on in the game. I think it's their best piece of work. It's a shame that they aren't going to be able to pick up in Season 2. It's even more of a shame that people who worked very hard for this company don't know where they're working now. But that's really all I have to say for this video. If you enjoyed it, if you liked the theorizing, be sure to like, comment down below. I'd love to talk about The Wolf Among Us. Like I said, one of my favorites of all time. And as this comes to a close, I just want to put it out there. The people who make games are people. We may not see faces that associate them with these games. They work hard and their efforts go unnoticed a lot, so here's just a great thank you for giving us all these amazing experiences. I'm gonna throw the credits for The Wolf Among Us on at the end of this episode just so we have some recognition for the people who made this game possible, because it really is one of my favorites of all time. And I don't think I have a better way to end it than that, so as always, thank you for watching, I appreciate it. Good vibes and good game.